All right, so the purpose of this video is to talk about defining database relationships between tables. So a better approach to creating relationships between database objects is to do this connection that I'm about to show you first, as opposed to the technique that I had demonstrated in the previous video, where we associated contact details and related contacts on the form. Better to do it between the database tables up front prior to populating data. So we've got the database tools, relationships, and this form or this interface allows you to see all the relationships that are created between tables. So we've got a button here to see all established relationships. It appears that there's only 3 tables that have relationships associated with them. There's a one-to-many association between the table on the left and the middle table, between the table in the middle and the table to its right. Not relevant to what we're about to do, but that's just how this table is set up. So we're going to create a relationship between our contacts table by dragging it out onto the canvas and their related contacts. And we want to create an association between the primary key of our contacts and their related contacts. In order for this to be successful and have the system maintain the referential association, our related contacts needs to not have our first problem, which is a value in our contact ID of anything that isn't inside of our contacts table. So our contacts primary keys 1, 2, and 3 are valid values. Our contacts ID related contacts table has a 0 value in here. So we need to remove that record before we start doing this association. So now that we've cleaned that up, when we create a relationship, the ID field to contact ID in related contact, and we ensure that we have referential integrity. Close out the forms themselves. The relationship can now be established. Now, anytime that you need to have an association between these 2 tables, or when this table is being displayed and you bring in related contacts, it knows who the master is and who the child is. Also, what you get out of this scenario for this one association is the ability to see children records that are associated to the main record or the master record with its children by that plus box that shows up on the left-hand side. This is also able to be created by creating sub-data sheets and relationships between one table and another table, or one query in another table. And we'll go through that in a future video. So now that we've got a relationship set up, we can close out of the form, save the layout of the relationships, and as we create additional tables that need to have relationships to our contacts or to other tables, we'll maintain that and update our relationships. So there's some good narratives that are out there that I'll post in the video description that talk about how to set these things up and organize them, and some concerns that others have voiced. And there's some good videos that are out there to help you understand this and see it in action executed by somebody else. The next piece that I'm going to work on is on our contact details. Sorry, on our related contacts, we've got this field where we understand the date of birth for that individual from a, what day they were born, in what month and what year. So then the question would be is, can we calculate the age of that individual? So we're on the related contacts, and we've got the data that we need both on our computer, which knows the current date and the date of birth for the record of the individual. And so we need a formula now to help us do this calculation to calculate the person's age. So I'll just get rid of this little text field, and we'll bring over a unbound or a text box, and we need a formula that's going to tell us the age of the individual. So one technique is to grab onto somebody else's formula, and they've got a calculation for age, and we take that and put it into our control source. Just paste it in. And what it's doing is it's telling you in years the date difference between the date of birth, so DOB, same field as what we've got, and date, which is a calculation of the current date on the computer. And if we were to look at a record for one of the individuals, and let's say her date of birth was in 2000, and today's date is 10/5/21, that lets us know that that individual is 20 years old. Now, all that's mildly interesting, but if we were to look at somebody that was born today, all we get out of this is that they're 0 years old. So another technique is to see if we can provide a little bit more value to this calculation. So save the changes, going back into design view. And I'll just pull this up. And bring in some Visual Basic code. Get it set up so we've got a place to store it. So Visual Basic code is a little bit more complicated or complex. What we've got here is somebody's created a VBA code that will calculate the individual's age in years, months, and days. So a little bit more complex than just giving me the date difference in years. In order for this to work, what we need to do is have the code. Give me a second here to get it set up. Put into our Visual Basic application location, and this will allow us to calculate from using this function with a start date and then providing the end date, and have the code provide us back years, months, and days. So we'll call this mod age. Save button. Now that we've got the code set aside, we'll grab a little bit more information. So what this is doing is this is just reminding us that we take the code and we're going to put this code inside of our control source for the date of birth calculation. And their example was date born. We're going to change it to date of birth. So if the date of birth field is null, then the value is going to be blank. Otherwise, it's going to do this calculation and use the date of birth as the start date and the current date as the end date to do the calculation to determine the number of years, considering 12 months in a year, number of years, number of months, and number of days. Sorry. And we let it run. Just a little bigger. So and there you go. A little bit more precise calculation for the age of that individual. Stop the video at this point and talk about some other stuff in a future video.